There is a language that doesn't need words. It is the rhythm that flows in your heartbeat, the tone in your laughter, the courage in your voice when you speak truth to power. It is the melody of your walk, the fire in your dreams, the calm in your wisdom. That language is not taught in classrooms nor written in books. It is inherited through spirit, memory, and time. It is the language of the ancestors, and even today, Africa still speaks through you. Long before there were borders or nations, there was sound. Before the world learned to name, count, or reason, there was vibration, echoes of energy that carried meaning. The first storytellers were not from Europe or Asia, but from Africa. Every human word, every whisper of civilization was first born from the tongues of black ancestors standing under African skies. When you speak, you are not just using words, you are continuing a conversation that began tens of thousands of years ago. You carry the sound of creation within you. But the beauty of this language is that it is not limited to speech. It is in your rhythm, in the way your hands move when you express passion, in the way your soul responds to music and art. Africa speaks through every drumbeat that shakes the air, through every song that rises from pain yet ends in joy, through every act of resilience that refuses to bow down. Even when they tried to silence that voice through colonization, slavery, and the tearing apart of families, the language survived. It hid itself in melodies, in the patterns of hair braiding, in symbols on fabric, in the way elders told stories around the fire. It became a spiritual code of survival. While others saw defeat, Africa spoke softly, "We are still here." You see, language is not just about communication, it is identity. And identity can never truly be destroyed. Every time you speak your truth, every time you create something from your soul, every time you refuse to forget where you came from, the ancestors speak again. When you feel that sudden strength in moments of despair, when something inside you whispers, "Keep going," that is the ancient voice guiding you. It is not a voice you can always hear, but one you can feel. It lives in your intuition, your creativity, and your sense of purpose. That's how Africa still speaks through you. For centuries, the world tried to disconnect black people from their origins. They erased languages, renamed our people, rewrote our history. But what they couldn't erase was the sound of the soul. The African soul doesn't need permission to speak. It sings through movement, through art, through rhythm. When jazz was born, it was Africa speaking again. When blues and gospel rose from the fields, it was Africa mourning and rejoicing in the same breath. When hip-hop emerged, it was Africa reasserting its voice in a modern world, telling stories of survival, injustice, and pride. Every innovation, every new form of art, every creative spark, it is the ancestors evolving through you, reminding the world that silence is not in our DNA. And when you look deeper, you realize that Africa's language is not just for black people, it is for humanity. Because Africa is the root of human civilization, the cradle of consciousness. The first humans who ever spoke, dreamed, or loved were African. So whether the world admits it or not, every human being carries an African echo within their spirit. Every song, every poem, every act of expression that touches the human heart is rooted in that first vibration, the one that began in Africa. That is why African culture influences the world so deeply, from the rhythms that dominate music charts, to the fashion that sets trends, to the wisdom of elders that still shapes communities. Africa continues to whisper to the world, "Remember where you began." And if you listen closely, you'll realize that the language of the ancestors is not only about the past, it is about the future. It calls you to rise, to evolve, to create, to remember that your power is not borrowed but inherited. You were not meant to imitate others. You were meant to lead with your originality. You were not made to blend in, you were designed to stand out. The ancestors did not endure so that you could shrink. They endured so that you could expand. Their language is the call that says, "You are greater than your circumstances." When you step into your purpose, when you use your talents to heal, to teach, to build, you are continuing the story they began. This is why understanding your roots is not about nostalgia, it is about awakening. When you recognize that you are a continuation of something ancient and divine, you stop living as if you are temporary. You begin to move differently, speak differently, dream differently. You stop seeing yourself as less than and start seeing yourself as chosen to carry forward the wisdom of generations. You become a vessel of history and a voice of tomorrow. The language of the ancestors was never meant to be trapped in museums or forgotten texts. It lives in you, in your blood, in your art, in your existence. Every African descendant walking this earth today is proof that you can silence a people but never their soul. That is the miracle of survival. That is the genius of identity. That is the melody of endurance that has played through centuries. No matter what corner of the earth you stand on, the rhythm of Africa moves in you. When you dance, it is not just movement, it is memory. When you sing, it is not just sound, it is legacy. When you create, it is not just talent, it is history coming alive. You are the living language of your ancestors, written in bone, blood, and breath. So speak proudly, live boldly, let the world hear your voice. Not the one society told you to use, but the one you were born with. The one shaped by survival, carved by resilience, and polished by hope. Every word you speak carries the strength of those who came before you. They still walk beside you in silence, cheering you on through every challenge, reminding you that the story isn't over. You are the next verse in an unending song that began in the heart of Africa. Let this truth settle deep in your soul. You are not just living your life. You are continuing the greatest conversation humanity ever started. You are proof that no amount of oppression can silence a truth that was written in the stars. When you rise, Africa rises. When you succeed, the ancestors rejoice. When you speak your truth, the universe remembers its first language. The language of the ancestors still speaks through you, and it will continue to as long as you never forget who you are. The spirit of your ancestors still speaks through your actions, your resilience, and the way you rise every time life tries to push you down. It is not something you can always hear with your ears, but it is something you feel deep within your chest, a vibration older than words, older than time. That is the voice of your ancestry, the echo of generations that refuse to be broken. Even when history tried to erase them, even when chains attempted to silence their tongues, that voice continued to whisper through the bloodline. You carry their rhythm, their wisdom, and their endurance in your very DNA. Every instinct you have to fight for your dreams, every urge to keep moving when the world says stop, every act of kindness and compassion you show, it's them, still living, still speaking, still guiding. You are not a random creation. You are a continuation of something divine, ancient, and deliberate. Your strength is not new, it's inherited. The courage that makes you stand in the face of adversity was built through centuries of struggle and survival. When you look in the mirror, you are seeing more than yourself. You are seeing a lineage that walked through deserts, crossed oceans, and endured the storms of slavery, displacement, and oppression, yet never surrendered their essence. The ancestors' message is not written in books. It is written in your heart. It's in the way you adapt, the way you create from nothing, the way you find joy even when there seems to be no reason for it. Their resilience became your blueprint. Every time you dance, every time you sing, every time you create art or solve problems, you are translating their language into motion and meaning. They may not speak through spoken words anymore, but they speak through your energy, your passion, and your will to survive. The world may have tried to strip away their identity, to rename them, to rewrite their history, but it failed because the essence of who they were cannot be contained or controlled. It's in you, pulsing like a heartbeat that refuses to stop. When you feel lost, when you feel disconnected, remember that you are never alone. Their voices move through you like wind moves through trees, quiet, powerful, and ever-present. Your ancestors' spirit calls you to remember, to rise, and to reclaim. Every generation before you fought for your right to exist, not just in body but in spirit and truth. They are the reason you have strength left to dream. Their survival is not just history, it's instruction. They are reminding you that there is no obstacle you cannot overcome, because they overcame worse. The storms they endured shaped you before you were born. The wisdom they carried was not buried, it was planted within you, waiting for you to awaken it. That's why sometimes your intuition knows the right path before logic does, because you are guided by the ancient memory of those who came before you. When you create something new, whether it's a business, a song, a vision, or a movement, you are continuing their story. They built pyramids, not just with stones, but with the belief that greatness was a birthright. They discovered rhythm not just for entertainment, but as a language of unity and healing. And now you continue that work in a new form. Your art, your hustle, your innovation, your compassion, all of it is the modern expression of an ancient soul. You are the living archive of your people's greatness, proof that history didn't end, it evolved. So when the world tries to make you feel small, when systems are designed to make you forget who you are, you must remember that you are carrying centuries of intelligence and grace in your veins. You were born from kings, queens, philosophers, warriors, inventors, and dreamers. That legacy didn't disappear, it transformed into you. You are not disconnected from your past. You are the proof of it. The fact that you're still here breathing, learning, and striving means their fight was not in vain. Every time you choose to rise above hatred, to pursue purpose, to educate yourself, to build and empower others, you are honoring them in the most sacred way possible. There is a language that doesn't need words, the language of legacy. It speaks through your persistence. It's the way you refuse to be defeated. It's the way you keep your dignity when the world tries to take it away. It's the way you forgive but never forget, the way you love deeply, the way you protect your peace. The ancestors speak through. They remind you that true power doesn't come from position, it comes from presence. They knew that empires fall but spirit endures. They knew that one day their descendants would stand again, stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. And here you are fulfilling that prophecy with every breath you take. You are their dream realized. You are their freedom in flesh. You are the continuation of a conversation that began long before time recorded it. Every challenge you face today has already been met in spirit by those who made you possible. The same strength that carried them across oceans and through centuries now flows through you. The same wisdom that built civilizations before the world recognized their brilliance still beats in your heart. The same light that guided them through darkness now shines from your eyes. The next time you feel doubt creeping in, remember who you come from. The next time you think you can't make it, remember how many had to survive for you to exist. The next time the world underestimates you, let your excellence speak for generations. You are not a product of chance. You are a purpose unfolding. Your ancestors are not just behind you, they are within you, shaping every decision, every victory, and every dream. You are their rebirth, their evolution, and their answer to everything they endured. So walk boldly, speak truthfully, create fearlessly, love deeply. The spirit that survived everything history threw at it did not do so for you to live in fear, it did so for you to live in fullness. You are the evidence that the past was not lost, it was reborn. The echoes of your ancestors are not faint whispers, they are thunder in your soul, calling you to remember that you were never meant to merely survive. You were meant to continue their greatness, to live as a reminder that no matter what happens, their spirit still lives on, unbroken, undefeated, and eternal through you. Africa never died, it transformed. The spirit of the continent was never buried beneath the rubble of colonization or the chains of slavery. It adapted, reshaped, and spoke through new tongues, new rhythms, and new generations. When empires sought to erase its essence, Africa responded by transcending borders, traveling through time and memory, embedding itself in every soul born of its soil and every melody that echoed across the seas. You cannot kill what is eternal. Africa is not a place you can confine to a map. It is a vibration that flows through bloodlines, through art, through music, through the unbroken rhythm of life itself. Its greatness was never limited to pyramids or kingdoms. It was always in the people, and when its people were scattered across continents, Africa transformed into a global force, speaking through them in ways the world could never predict. The drums of the motherland never stopped beating, they simply changed form. You hear them in the heartbeat of jazz, in the soul of gospel, in the energy of hip-hop, in the pulse of Afrobeat, in the sway of samba, in the blues that gave birth to rock and roll. Those are not just sounds, they are spiritual translations of Africa's eternal song. Every note, every rhythm, every movement is a declaration. Africa lives. Even in the darkest chapters of history, when her children were taken from her shores, The continent found a way to remain alive through them. The plantation fields became classrooms of resilience. The chains became symbols of endurance. The voices that once cried out in pain began to sing songs of freedom that would inspire the entire world. Art became the weapon. Music became the language. Culture became the resistance. Colonization could conquer land, but it could not conquer spirit. That is why Africa continues to rise in every era, no matter how many times it's suppressed. The brilliance of its people turned pain into power, tragedy into triumph. From Harlem to Lagos, from Kingston to Johannesburg, the flame of Africa kept burning, passing from generation to generation. It's in the way we move, the way we think, the way we love, and the way we create beauty even in hardship. Africa didn't die, it learned how to live through us. The world underestimated Africa's power to evolve. They thought they could silence it through oppression, but instead they gave it new voices. They thought they could divide it through borders, but they only made it global. They thought they could erase it from memory, but it reappeared in every movement for justice, in every song of hope, in every invention that changed lives. The same spirit that built the pyramids built modern civilizations in silence. The same intelligence that created hieroglyphics now designs technology and art that continues to shape the human experience. Africa's wisdom didn't disappear, it transformed into the language of survival and creativity. Look at the art forms that define our world today. Fashion, music, literature, dance, they all trace back to Africa's heartbeat. From the patterns on ancient walls to the colors on modern streets, from tribal storytelling to digital expression, the foundation remains the same. The message is resilience. The legacy is adaptation. The continent never stopped teaching, it just changed the classroom. And its greatest lesson is that no force can destroy what is divine in origin. You can colonize a body but not a soul. You can suppress a culture but not its creativity. Africa proved that even in fragments it remains whole, because wholeness is not measured by territory. It's measured by spirit. Every generation of African descent is living proof of transformation. The blood that once built civilizations still builds communities and movements across the world. The same determination that built pyramids now builds future. When you see young black entrepreneurs creating businesses from nothing, when you see artists telling their truth through film and music, when you see scholars reclaiming lost history and rewriting narratives, you are witnessing Africa's evolution. It's not returning, it's rebirthing itself in every act of excellence. Africa doesn't need to rise again, it never fell. It simply changed form so that its spirit could reach every corner of the earth. Even in moments of chaos, Africa's essence remains the calm beneath the storm. It's the source of rhythm, the root of humanity's creativity, the soul of the world's conscience. The inventions of our ancestors, language, mathematics, medicine, spirituality became the foundation for human progress. Every continent still echoes Africa's contribution, whether they recognize it or not. The world owes its voice, its art, its sense of community to the land that gave birth to civilization. When we say Africa never died, we are not speaking poetry, we are speaking truth. Because death requires absence, and Africa has never been absent. It has always been present, living through its descendants, shaping the future quietly but powerfully. Those who tried to erase Africa misunderstood its nature. You cannot destroy something that was born before destruction existed. You cannot silence a frequency that vibrates through every living being. Africa's transformation was not a loss, it was a strategy. It became water, flowing around barriers, adapting to environments, nourishing everything its children carried its light into every land, and even when they forgot where they came from, Africa never forgot them. That is why we still feel drawn to its soil, its music, its stories. It is a home calling its people back, not necessarily in geography, but in identity. To remember who we are is to remember who Africa has always been. The source. The continent's transformation is not just a story of the past. It's a prophecy being fulfilled. Africa's time is not coming, it is already here. The world is beginning to listen again, to recognize that what was dismissed as primitive was in fact profound. Its wisdom about unity, community, and balance is exactly what modern civilization now sees. The technology of the heart, the science of the soul, the rhythm of existence, All of it originates from the same place. When we reconnect with Africa, we are not looking backward, we are returning to the origin of truth. So let the world know, Africa never died, it simply became everything. It became the sound in music, the fire in culture, the genius in innovation, the rhythm in language, and the beauty in struggle. It transformed so it could never be captured again. The greatest miracle of Africa is not just its survival, it's its transformation. Through pain it found purpose. Through oppression it found expression. Through exile it found expansion. That is the unbroken truth of the motherland. It is eternal, limitless, and ever evolving. Africa's story will never end because Africa is not a story, it is the pulse of creation itself, still beating, still rising, still transforming through every one of us. You are the living language. Every breath you take, every move you make, every expression of your being carries the echo of voices that existed long before you were born. The rhythm of your heartbeat is in sync with the drums that once echoed across the savannas, through the valleys, and along the banks of the Nile. The words you speak, even in languages foreign to your ancestors, carry the melody of ancient tongues that first named the stars, measured the seasons, and gave birth to human understanding. You are not separated from history. You are its continuation, the walking memory of civilizations that taught the world how to speak, how to build, and how to dream. The world may have tried to convince you that your beginning was in chains, but your true beginning was in creation, in wisdom, in divine design. Your ancestors were not silent people, they were storytellers, teachers, mathematicians, poets, scientists, and builders of destiny. Their language was not confined to words, it was expressed in music, in dance, in symbols, and in the energy of life itself. When they spoke, the earth listened. When they sang, the winds carried their voices beyond horizons. That spirit of communication did not die, it lives within you. Every time you create, innovate, or inspire, you are translating the unspoken messages of those who came before you. Their dreams are not lost in history. They live in your DNA, encoded in your spirit, manifesting in the way you navigate this world. You are the proof that Africa still speaks. Every culture influenced by African presence, every rhythm that shakes the world, every innovation born from creativity and struggle, all trace back to that same unbreakable frequency. The diaspora was never just about separation. It was about expansion. Africa's voice became multilingual, multicultural, multidimensional. It spoke through the resistance of the enslaved, the poetry of the oppressed, and the vision of the liberated. It became the cry for justice, the song of unity, and the whisper of hope that refuses to fade. You are not the aftermath of history. You are its evolution. Language is not only spoken, it is lived. It is found in the way a mother holds her child, in the laughter that fills a community, in the resilience that refuses to surrender. That is the African language: connection, harmony, endurance. When you see Black people around the world rising against injustice, expressing their culture through art, or celebrating their heritage, what you are witnessing is the oldest conversation continuing without pause. It's a language the world cannot silence, because it does not depend on words. It depends on rhythm, on life, on identity. You are the translation of a prayer that was whispered centuries ago. When your ancestors looked toward the stars and asked for strength, they were not just asking for survival, they were asking for legacy. You are that legacy. You are the living response to their courage. The same voice that once named rivers and crowned kings now speaks through your determination to succeed, your compassion, your creativity, and your pride in where you come from. The African language has never stopped evolving, and through you it continues to shape the world. When you sing, dance, write, or speak truth, you are speaking in the ancestral language of expression. It is the reason the rhythm of drums still resonates in your heart. It is why you feel power when you move, why your laughter carries healing, and why your tears hold meaning. Those who came before you built the foundation of civilization with this same spirit, and that spirit flows through every generation. It cannot be colonized, it cannot be erased, and it cannot be silenced, because it lives in the human soul. The world may borrow from it, imitate it, or misunderstand it, but it can never own it. That belongs to you. Even science acknowledges that language, music, and communication began in Africa. But beyond the academic truth lies the deeper one, The spiritual reality that the human experience itself was first articulated through African consciousness. The stories of the universe, the mysteries of life, the laws of nature, all were first observed and expressed by those who understood that humanity and the earth were one. That understanding became encoded in everything we now call civilization. Every time you see art that moves the soul, a word that stirs emotion, or a rhythm that brings people together, you are witnessing a continuation of the first language ever spoken, the language of connection birthed by Africa. You are not just the descendant of survivors. You are the inheritor of visionaries, the same brilliance that wrote on temple walls in Kemet, that carved symbols in Ife, that composed proverbs in Yoruba and Igbo villages, now writes itself through your life. When you rise above adversity, you are writing a new verse in that eternal story. When you uplift others, you are speaking fluently in the dialect of unity. And when you dare to dream, you are keeping the ancient dialogue alive, one that began before time and will continue beyond it. Understand this. You are not alone in your journey. Every step you take is accompanied by the footsteps of those who came before you. Their language speaks through your intuition, guiding you when logic fails. Their courage breathes through your actions, reminding you that greatness is not a gift. It is an inheritance. Every act of kindness, every fight for freedom, every moment of creation is an echo of that ancient voice saying, "We are still here." The world may evolve, but Africa's voice remains the same, timeless, powerful, unbroken. So when you speak, know that you are carrying thousands of years of wisdom in your words. When you move, remember that you are dancing with generations that never stop moving forward. When you dream, understand that you are fulfilling the dreams of your ancestors who refused to give up. You are not speaking for yourself alone. You are speaking for them, for the past, for the future, and for the world that still needs to hear the truth. Africa never lost its voice. It speaks through its people. It speaks through you. You are the language of the ancestors, alive, radiant, and unstoppable. And as long as you continue to rise, create, and love, that language will never fade. The world may change its dialects and names, but the source will always remain the same. You are the living voice of the first storytellers, the carriers of eternal knowledge, and the proof that Africa's song will echo through time as long as you keep speaking, keep building, and keep believing in the power that flows within you.